Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today we're going to be taking a look at the new Protector Treyni, Great Forest's Secretary. I'm doing the Protector first this time because she is quite gimmicky, and I think we'll need a little bit more explanation, so I figured that should go out before the Shuna showcase. So let's just kind of get to it. Treyni has a very wonky kind of kit. It's got a lot going on for it, which in some cases can be good because she is doing a lot. But at the same time, you can also kind of lose focus and things could be not so great sometimes, depending on how the team is actually built. So she's giving Tempest Elite extra 6% damage against Earth. The lack of fire characters on Tempest Elite definitely hurts right now. We'll check that out in a bit. She's giving physical characters attack and defense plus 20%, and then she's giving you 30 skill points for multiple turns just for free, just like New Year's Blessing Xion, which is nice. Definitely can help. Her actual skill. Every orb that you send while it's active generates a follow-up orb that does either half the damage of the original orb or 20% of the damage if it was an alt orb. And we will definitely explain that through gameplay when we get to that part of the video. And then she also gives 100% alt gauge to the unit with the highest attack. So it is very specific. You do need to be aware of who has the highest attack, because you may end up giving alt gauge to someone you didn't want to on accident. And then she also gives blue orbs an extra 70% skill point increase, and that's just nice, because blues generally don't give you a lot of skill points, and this team definitely does want a number of skill points alongside the 30 that she's giving you for free for the first 4 turns. So let's go ahead and jump in after we take a look at the Tempest Elite force in general, because it's got a lot of units. It's probably the biggest force in the game. However, there's only 3 EX characters. All of them are Shunas, and all of them are not really meant to run well together. You know, the new Shuna is a blue orb changer. This Shuna is a alt swapper to greens and synergy, which you don't want to use in this beatdown battle. And then Vengeance Shuna is like a weird DPS defensive unit. And then everything else is very old or free-to-play units, like free-to-play, 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 4-star, free-to-play, free-to-play, 4 stars. It's a lot of old units, some of which can work on a blue team. Geld will be very good for this team. Warrior's Mind Xion, like, she's got that stacking crit damage, but you don't want to crit in this beatdown battle, so she's not really useful. You can bring her as an orb changer, but she's got the same orb change as Geld, so Shuna will definitely be good with the orb change and the alt buff. She'll be very handy. Space Rimuru will be good. Dark Rimuru, even though with the skill fusion, again, you don't want to crit this stage, so it's a lot of old units that may or may not work well together. But we're gonna, build teams around Tempest Elite, and we'll see if we can make a bunch of different colors work. So let's go ahead now and jump into the actual gameplay. Alright, this is the team we're going to run with right now. We've got Treyni, the free-to-play Gobta, Water Shuna, Space Rimuru, and the new Shuna, all of which are on Tempest Elite. And then we're going to bring the 2nd anniversary Hinata, because we're going to get that element buff from her. She is not on Tempest Elite, though, but we're also looking to make sure that Shuna does, in fact, have the highest attack in the team, because that's who we want our alt gauge to go to. So 10-9-7-9, 11-0-19, hopefully this doesn't go up by anything during the fight, but, we'll find out. But this should work. Alright, so we are in the EX2 stage of Beatdown Battle, the last stage where you get a Gobta dupe. So first off, Gobta will orb change here, and then we'll go ahead and take him out for Shuna, and we'll bring Hinata in for Space Rimuru, and she's got Water Xion underneath her for turn 2 protection trait. So first off, this team has a serious issue with power. Damage is not something this team really outputs on the whole right now, mainly because we're missing the primary DPS, and that will be solved eventually. But here, there's the debuff for our crit and our synergy power, so that's why I'm saying you don't want to crit and you don't want a synergy in this stage, because we have a permanent debuff of 20%, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it does hurt the damage, and it does apply to all of the back line, so we can't like hide someone in the back and have them avoid that. But here, we're going to take Hinata out now. We're going to bring Gobta back in, and now we can use Shuna's full orb change, get this entire hand to be blues. Awesome. We'll also give ourselves the 3-turn pierce rate, and now we'll use Treyni. So, because Shuna should have the highest attack, 13,995, and then 10. Yeah, and then Gobta doesn't have gear on. So, we will immediately get 100% alt gauge for Shuna. 200% if we use both of these Treynis, which we could certainly do. So, Treyni, there you go. 100% free alt gauge right there, and I've got a heal charm on. So, boom. And now you can see that my blue orbs have this little red ring of fire around them. So, on top of blue orbs getting a 70% skill point increase, the 25% damage increases from Shuna's orb change, now, every time we send one of these orbs, it's going to generate a follow-up orb. So by sending 6 blues, we're actually going to be sending 12 orbs. So let's go ahead and give that example here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 12 orbs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the follow-up orbs will do half the damage that each of their orb that it corresponded to in additional damage. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You saw that they all did pierce damage because all the orbs that were originally sent were pierced. So it takes on the attributes of the original orb sent. And then it just does extra damage. Again, it's 50% for every normal orb, or 20% of the total damage that an alt orb does. If you send an alt with this active, the follow-up will also be an AoE orb. If you send a single target alt, then it will also be a single target follow-up orb. So it is very much just exactly what you had previously sent, just less damage because it's a follow-up. So here, what we could do now is we could, convert all these again, boom, and then we'll go ahead and bring in Space Rimuru for Gobta, and we have enough points to use his attack debuff, or attack buff and alt resistance down. We'll use Treyni again to give Shuna, quote-unquote, the EX alt, but again, we'll do the follow-ups, and now we can verify that this will be an AoE follow-up that will have a higher attack because our attack is buffed, and it's going to do more damage because they're going to take more damage. And we'll do this. So the AoE, boom, 60k right there, and then the follow-up orbs are going to hit Treyni, 11k, and the 2% orb does 22k, so the final orb should do 11k. So there's the AoE, boom, for 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 31k. Okay. Well, yeah, because it was a guard, right? She was guarding. He wasn't guarding that. But there we go. So any orb you send while that's active will generate a follow-up orb that is fire element, because that's the meta damage typing that we're wanting to use here. So that's how follow-up orbs work. If you have other buffs, like if they were critting or they were synergy, and you had those active, then the follow-up orbs would also crit and also synergy. So you could have a follow-up orb that does synergy, pierce, and crit all at the same time, if you have the buffs active on the unit, which we'll definitely try out. If it's an alt, if you do some major stupid, like a million damage alt, and then the follow-up orb will do 20% of that. It'll do 200k on the follow-up. So it's nice, it's just that this team doesn't have a lot of damage output to even get to that level. So it's really, really dependent on getting all of that follow-up damage and making sure that whoever is your primary dealer has a good amount of buffs on to make the follow-up orbs actually worthwhile. Alright, we are back, this time in Inferno 1, where they have a little bit more health. And we're going to use the same team, but full buff Shuna. She's got the Pierce, and she's got the element buff from Hinata already. We're on turn 4, we have 120 points, which means that we have enough to use the alt buff and the attack buff with Rimuru now. So let's go ahead and take Hinata out, since we've already used her buff. We don't need to do that anymore. And then we'll do the, let's see, we'll get Gobta out of here too, because you're not doing much. Boom. And now we will see the full power of like a fully buffed alt. So the attack buff plus the alt buff plus the alt resistance down, plus the element buff, plus the pierce buff, and the follow-up orbs that will follow. So now we're going to have a pretty good AoE that's going to have a decent amount of follow-up damage. We have another follow-up alt here that'll do more, and then we have a few orbs that'll clean up if we need to. So let's see, actually, let's turn the animation on. Yeah, and then we'll do this. So Shuna, her AoE ult is super buffed now. As much as it really can be on this style of team that doesn't have a lot of power right now, lacking the DPS, lacking some new power buffs. So let's see what she does here. Oh, okay, not much because we synergied on one of them. Okay, I didn't see the other numbers. But we're going to do 20% of that on the follow-up, which you can see has an AoE indicator on it. Both hers and Rimuru's have an AoE indicator because it's an AoE ult. So this attack, 36k, okay, cool, fine. And then some follow-up orbs, 150% on this, and then the follow-up from the Shuna ult, boom, and then the AoE ult from Rimuru's ult, and then the 2 other orbs. And we were able to kill one, and then the other ones were a little unfortunate. Not quite enough power there, and now we got a continuous heal on that. But there you go. So that is a prime example of how to maximize follow-up damage, is to really make sure your first initial turn is super buffed. That way your follow-up can, do additional, just better damage. But remember, the alts only do 20% of what the alt follow-ups only do 20% of the original, while the normal orbs do 50. So there's the new team, as best as we can attempt to run it right now. Let's go ahead and try her out on Tempest Elite, but not the new meta, and certainly not this beatdown battle, where we have our options are not quite as limited. Alright, next up we're going to go into the Clayman EX5 Tempered Edge. 682,000 HP, so he has more than what the beatdown battle has when we did it, but he is only one enemy, and we are going to be using Violet now as our single target DPS. So we're going to try and pray that, with her guaranteed crits and pierces and attack buff, plus the alt buff and the fire buff, that our follow-up orbs will do a hefty amount of damage. And then we've brought, again, Shuna and Gobta for the blue orb changing, plus the alt swap. Fire Benimaru is here for that turn 1 orb change and his burn. And also, if we can get his alt as well, it will just help our damage output, because, he is a single target as well. He also lowers defense on his ult, I think. So we'll see if this can work. But Shizu and Violet are not on the category, so that's the only thing, but it is what it is. Alright, we've finally got a good turn 2. Turn 1, all we use is Benimaru's orb change, and that's it, so I skipped ahead. Turn 2 is where a lot of the RNG is coming into play. Thankfully, though, we can make this work. So, orb change with Shuna, and then we'll bring Gobta in for Shuna. I think is what we're going to do, and then we'll bring Violet in. Now, we do have Violet as our primary DPS on this team. However, she is not on the Tempest Elite force, which means she's not getting an extra 60% damage buff. So if we were to send this hand, Benimaru would actually end up doing more damage than Violet. But when we start putting on, the Violet buffs, things start to look a little bit more interesting. Let's go ahead and put the Pierce buff on her as well. And now we'll give her a full ult gauge. And now we'll have a 6-hand of all follow-up orbs that are fire. And we should do decent damage against this Clayman. And then that, we have at least one ult ready for Violet. And next turn, we could give her 2 if we wanted. And we could just kind of do it and keep it riding over and over and over and over again now. And we got the heal charm on still. So let's see how much damage we do with Benimaru, who's unbuffed, and then Violet, who has a lot of buffs. So 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 with, the guaranteed crit pierce attack buff and the pierce power buff. So, good. And then the follow-ups come into play. Boom, boom, boom. 15k and a 50k burn, because the burn also is affected by the fire-type follow-up orbs. So that, you could make something out of this, right? It's not the most terrible thing in the world. And now we have a lot of points here, so let's go ahead and bring in Shuna for Shizu, I guess. Boom. We'll do the orb change again. And then we'll bring Gobta in. And what we could do is we could send the ult and then this. And we could get away with it, which is what I'm going to do. But also, we could just use the ult swap ability, have a whole hand of blues, and get a lot of protection gauge. But because Violet's not an EX character, it doesn't seem very necessary to do that. So we're going to just maximize kind of our buffs that we have going on right now. Let's see. She'll lose the fire buff, and she'll lose the pierce, or the attack buff and the pierce buff, I think. Yeah, pierce power, and then the attack buff is only for one more turn. So might have to go... Yeah, we'll do this. We'll get her ult again. We'll get a lot of points, and then I think we can save up her ult next turn and get the points that we need to use both the Shizu and Shuna buff. But this should be interesting just to see how much damage we actually do on this ult with the follow-up, with the 2 stacks of burn. So, I don't need to watch this. 72k, not a lot, but she doesn't have that many buffs going on. 16k on her normal orb, and then 200% comes in. 32, and then her ult follow-up, 14k, not great. But, I mean, he's missing a lot of health, and the burn did 75k right there. That's pretty good. And now... Ooh, okay. I mean, yeah, that works. So let's do the attack buff again. Let's reapply some burn. And then we can just get her out of here. Boom. And do we have enough orbs for this? So if we swap the ult away there... Boom. I actually think we can get away with this now. So let's just go ahead and send these. Gets us max points because it's a double protector right there. It doesn't really matter. And then I think we'll get one more turn of the 30 points, and that will give us enough to do the 2 major buffs. Alright, and boom. Alright, perfect. There we go. So let's get Benimaru out for Violet. We'll get Gobta out for Shuna. And now we can use the fire buff and the ult buff, while Violet still has her pierce, her crit, and her attack buff. And then, obviously he's going to die, regardless. Either through the follow-up attacks, through the ult, through the burn. He's going to die somehow this turn. But this is actually pretty effective, and not very hard to do. Like, there was RNG required to get that turn 2 going with the full hand of blues. But if we had brought Shuna, we could have, kind of gotten around it, because we have 3 characters that are on Tempest Elite. 4 if we bring Shuna instead of either Christmas Shuna, because she'd be the only swappable unit, because Violet's our DPS and we need Benimaru, and he's already on it. So there are ways to do this, and it's fine. How much does her ult do? 172k. So then we would have had a 20% follow-up orb right there, and then the rest of it, and then the burn on top of that. So that, Clayman is not an easy stage by any means, especially for newer players. So this Treyni and the combo of team, they can get it done. They have the tools necessary to clear EX5, which is saying something. But EX5 Tempered Edge for Clayman came out a long time ago. It's an old stage. Violet really can't be used in today's meta, and definitely cannot be used in this Beatdown battle because of that guaranteed crit that she's doing to herself would just nerf her damage. But this was an efficient showing. Alright, for the final part of the video, we're going to be using her on the Wind Tempered Edge stage with Diablo. So, I never liked Diablo's original team with Protector Gabiru. I thought it was pretty weak. I know some people did, but it was a burst blue team, and Treyni is leading a burst blue meta again. So I figured, let's give it a shot. We're going to bring Gaia for some orb change, plus the guaranteed crits, but he's going to give himself his own crits, and he's magic. But the ult buff. Geld and Treyni here for the orb changing, plus Guy, plus the wind buff from Treyni, plus Diablo's own buffs, plus Dino's debuffs. And I think we should be able to make this work here. I think. It's a theory test, right? More than anything else. So let's try it out. Alright, well, look at that magical starting hand that we have for Guy. So boom, he can get that started. We're already getting extra protection gauge from Treyni's trait. We'll bring Diablo in for Guy, and yeah, I think that's all we do right now. We're going to be able to alt-rush Diablo very, very quickly, which was one of the issues that we had with Win 2.0 is getting ults. And that's why Treyni has an alt-rush ability. But here, we're getting that from her Protector counterpart. And this hand is not great, because look, we have no Diablo orbs. So even if we were to use Treyni's alt-rush skill, it wouldn't really matter all that much, because we still wouldn't get his ult. Unless we do this. And then, boom, there's a free ult for Diablo. That was difficult. Look at all these orbs that I can't do anything with. Yeah, okay. Let's just use some Diablo skills and get him out of there. Yeah, let's do that one. And then he can just go away. I don't really care. Let's use the wind buff as well on him. There. He's almost got an EX ult. Now he's got the wind buff, and he can just leave. And he's good until the nuke turn. Let's send these Geld orbs. Maybe get a good hand next turn with Guy or something else. Boom, 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 boom. Alright, so you see the fire follow-ups, because they're water, they were resist against, because they are fire elements. What is this? What is this crap? The game. The game just trolls me endlessly, mercilessly, pathetically. Alright, well, we need a few points to make this work. So 80 here, plus the 25, so we need 105 points minimum, which we can definitely get. And then the debuffs from Dino last for multiple turns. Yeah. So let's just use those now. And then we'll just send these greens, get them out of there, and maybe next turn we can look pretty good with the extra 30 points that's coming in. We will then have enough to nuke with Diablo at full power before Diablo can nuke us. And the game doesn't want to give me blues. Okay, that's fine. Fine. It doesn't matter. We'll do it anyways. Guy comes in for Dino? Treyni? Treyni. Sure, why not? Alright. And now we will ult buff, and then we will give the crits to Diablo, plus the defense down on their Diablo. And now, we'll do this, and we'll see how much damage this ult does, and we have an ult ready for next turn. And we'll just send these orbs. So Diablo, his ult does 130k. And then we've got these follow-up orbs. Boom. And then his follow-up, 8,000. Because it's fire, it doesn't do that much, though. That's the problem. Because they are dedicated element buffs, that follow-up attack should have killed that Diablo. But because they were guaranteed fire, it did not work the way we wanted it to. Dino has no orbs, so he can come out. We can do this orb change here. Boom. And we can send it. So now Diablo is going to die because our Diablo is going to nuke him again. Boom, 34k. Not a lot. But now we're going to follow and start hitting Geld. So it's not a pretty team by any means. And definitely I could have brought the new Shuna for this because she is wind and physical. And it probably would have ran a lot better and just built a whole Tempest Elite team out of it. But I wanted to test out older units that maybe are not as good. And we wouldn't have gotten that extra type advantage damage anyway, because they're not Earth. So it is what it is. Let's do this kind of shenanigans. Let's do that. Convert that. Ah, damn. I was really hoping it would hit that Geld orb. Okay, well, Geld orb it is. Boom. We'll give Diablo another ult gauge. And his attack buff is leaving next turn. Unfortunate. It is what it is, though. We'll have... Actually, no, we're done with the passive point gain, because we're on turn 6 now. So we will not gain any new points from Treyni now that we've passed that turn limit. So 80 is where we're going to be capped at. And we're just going to have to pray that we can kill with, you know, just consistently rushing ults and these type disadvantage follow-up orbs. 700, 500 damage, 2600 damage. Yeah, that's not what I would call incredibly amazing. Alright, you come out. Boom. We'll use this, and we'll just kind of have to whittle them down, I guess. That's what we're going to do. We'll just... Alright, Guy got the ult this time because he has higher attack stats than Diablo because he's an EX120 unit. Hilarious. Alright, 18,000, 2,000, 4,000, 2,000 because he's guarding, and then the fire follow-ups. So I think we're just going to start now. I don't really think we needed to go any further than this, honestly. It's pretty pathetic, actually, what we're doing right here, now that I think about it. But, Protector Treyni, she can make some old units work, and she can definitely rush ults fine. It's just that the fire element orbs can either be a huge detriment and not actually add that much to your overall DPS, like what we have going on here, or it could do a wonder of number of things, like we were doing in the Fire Tempered Edge stage. And that's pretty much what it boils down to, is that she's very much a gimmick, right? You need blue orbs to make this work. The alt gauge is cool, but you do need to, pay attention, because Guy doesn't have his weapon on, I don't think. Right? He could have even higher attack, but I don't want to give him the ult. I want to give Diablo the ult. So you have to be consciously aware of who has a higher attack stat and who's going to get this ult buff right here. So that's the thing. And then the fire follow-up orbs are just a gimmick. So overall, I'm not super impressed with Treyni. Her team has a lot of units, but not viable strategies at this point because of its lack of EX characters in an EX meta nowadays. And it's just not what I'm really looking for. So I think it's a good skip month, right before the 2.5 anniversary, right after the Overlord collab. I think it's safe to just skip and not worry and feel like you're missing out on something that's super, super important. Like people who skipped New Year's Blessing Xion don't have that Valor Cup powerhouse anymore. But Treyni, man. Treyni's doing a lot of things, but I wouldn't say she's a master of anything. So that's my overall grade, is probably like a 6.5, somewhere around there. Maybe, once the rest of the meta comes out with Benimaru and whatever that third unit's going to be, whether it be Soe or someone else, maybe the team will be a lot better looking. But for now, I think she's just really heavily underpowered. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.